Predictably, Fox News has been working overtime to launder and sanitize Donald Trump's desperate scheme to rig the 2026 midterms in advance by gerrymandering Texas's voting maps. Unfortunately for MAGA Fox News host Dana Perino, she was relentlessly shut down by Ken Martin, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, one of the top Democrats in the country. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we're going to play this 7 or 8 minute long interview between Dana Perino of Fox News, former George W. Bush press secretary, now MAGA Republican, and Ken Martin, chair of the DNC.
And here now is DNC Chairman Ken Martin, who is now back in Washington, D.C. It's good to see you.
Thank you,
Let me
Dana.
get an overall take from you on where you think things are going, because we've seen this movie before and we know how it ends. The Democrats don't have the votes in Texas to stop it. I'm assuming they're going to go back unless they plan to leave the state forever. What do you know?
Well, look, I think the Texas House Dems are going to do everything they can to continue to fight against these illegal, unconstitutional acts of Governor Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, and others in Texas. That means staying out as long as they possibly can. This isn't just some sort of stunt. I mean, this requires everyone at this point, not just Texas Dems, but people throughout this country who are quite outraged at this illegal power grab by Donald Trump and Greg Abbott.
Okay, they went to Illinois. We showed you that map of the very extremely gerrymandered situation there in Illinois. It gets an F grade from the Princeton Gerrymandering Project.
So let's stop right there for just a second. This is what Dana Perino does. So many MAGA Republicans like Perino are pouncing on the fact, well, hey, these Democrats fled to Illinois, and Illinois is gerrymandered. Illinois is gerrymandered. There's no question about it. And gerrymandering is a problem. Ken Martin will address what Democrats have attempted to do to undermine gerrymandering for both sides across the country, whereas Republicans have not. But if we're going to talk about the Princeton grades of voting maps, Republicans have far more F maps than Democrats. So again, she's trying to create a false equivalence here, or even suggest that Democrats are worse. They're not. They are objectively better at not gerrymandering than the Republicans. The Republicans are much more likely and much more egregiously gerrymandering. So again, just a false equivalence we need to call out.
You said it was illegal. We asked Texas Governor Greg Abbott about that on Monday. Here's what he said.
Why now? Two reasons. A court decision affecting Texas came out and said that coalition districts are no longer required, and it's perfectly legal to dismantle coalition districts. The second is gerrymandering can be done, or drawing lines can be done, on the basis of political makeup, and there's nothing illegal about that. And then when you look at the outcome of the most recent presidential election, all these districts that are being added are districts that were won by Trump.
Are you concerned overall, as the head of the DNC, that part of the reason Democrats are up in arms about the Texas redistricting is that Latino voters had been going towards the Trump coalition and voting that way?
Look,
so before Martin responds, again, it's so absurd. Yes, it is true that Latino voters were trending towards Trump, although recent polling indicates that he has hemorrhaged that support, perhaps not in Texas, but certainly across the country collectively, with his disastrous mismanagement of the economy and his draconian and cruel immigration policy. Number one, right? So this idea that simply because during the election, Trump received more support from Latino voters than previously, the idea that that's the reason we oppose this is absurd. The reason that we oppose this is because you're doing a mid-decade redistricting. At the end of the census I can't even remember when the next census is. I'm pretty sure it's on Trump's watch. It might be 2032. I can't remember. But the bottom line is, if these trends hold, those districts will be redrawn. Nobody opposed the redrawing of districts, but the mid-decade gerrymandering, that's what people object to. And again, that's assuming that these trends hold in the first place.
Greg Abbott is absolutely wrong in what he just said there. It is unconstitutional. Let me be very clear on this, Dana. The Constitution provides for a once every 10-year decennial census, and then the state legislatures are supposed to draw the lines after that. It does not allow for a mid-cycle redistricting at all in any case. And so what this is unconstitutional. Here today, we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. This is a clear violation of the Voting Voting Rights Act. This has nothing to do with which direction Latino voters are swinging or not. What this has to do with is the fact that the lines that they draw are actually disenfranchising Latino voters in the state of Texas. And the reality is it's a clear violation of the Voting Rights Act. And yes, while the courts do allow now for partisan gerrymandering, I think most Americans would agree that we should not have partisan gerrymandering on either side, which is why, by the way, Democrats put forward 2 pieces of legislation in 2021 that would have ended partisan gerrymandering as we know it and put independent redistricting committees in every single state. Every Democrat voted for that. Every Republican voted against that. So
well,
let
there
me
was
be
a lot
very
of.
clear.
I'm going to let that go. There were a lot of other things in that bill that Republicans wanted to vote against.
So again, Dana Perino says, and I had this conversation with conservative commentator Brad Palumbo, who is a never Trump Republican, never Trump conservative. Okay, but he said something to this effect yesterday when I pointed out that that the only time there has been a federal push or a push for a federal gerrymandering ban, all Democrats supported it, Republicans opposed it. And Palumbo came back to me with something similar to Perino there, which is, well, there's a lot of other pork in, the We the People Act or For the People Act, H.R. 1, that would cause Republicans to oppose it. You can't use that as an example. I can use that as an example. And the reason I can is because, to my knowledge, and Palumbo conceded on this, and I think Perino would as well, it would be different if Democrats came with this omnibus bill and said, hey, listen, we have this like massive voting rights booster omnibus legislation, and one of its major components is a gerrymandering ban at every level. Now, I don't know why you would oppose expanding the franchise of voting, which is what the H.R. 1 did. It democratized things even more. I would argue that the reason Republicans opposed it is because they feared that with the more democratized a nation becomes, when you expand and make easier the franchise of voting, they feel that they are less likely to win elections. I would argue that's their opposition to it. But let's just say, for whatever reason, they took issue with H.R. 1. Then they could have come back and said, hey, listen, though, if you give us just a federal gerrymandering ban, blue states, red states, immediately, we'll back it, we'll sign it, we'll get it to Joe Biden's desk just like that. But they never did. There is absolutely no evidence that they support a federal nationwide gerrymandering ban, and there's plenty of evidence that Democrats do. So no, we're not going to pretend that both sides are the same on this. One party objectively tries to ban gerrymandering. It's the Democratic Party. The Republican Party has not. So again, this is one instance, I'm sorry, where Democrats are just morally superior, certainly elected Democrats, whether you like it or not.
Let me then take it a bigger picture, because there's no question that Governor Newsom and Governor Pritzker have both, flirted with the idea of running for president. And Pritzker, and then he goes on Colbert, he's got all this attention, he's going to pay for the Democrats to stay there. How much of this has to do with their posturing for 2028?
You'd have to ask them. What I would say is that I know in my conversations with all of the Democratic elected officials throughout this state, throughout the country, they are unified in fighting back against this. This has nothing to do with 28. This has everything to do with 25 and 26 and this illegal power grab by the Republicans, who are trying to squeeze more power out of Texas right now because they know they are certain to lose in 2026. So let's be really clear what this is about. They are trying to change the rules of the game midstream because they know they are about to lose that game. And let me be very clear. I don't care what anyone's personal motivations are for this. At the end of the day, if they're in this fight, we're in this fight alongside all of them. Governor Newsom, Governor Hochul, Governor Pritzker, other governors, members of Congress, and other elected officials who are standing up right now against this illegal power grab. All right.
One of the things that...
So before we go on to the rest of it and wrap up this exchange, again, Ken Martin was 100% right on the money there. The presidential aspirations of Newsom and Pritzker are immaterial here. This idea, the fact of the matter is, their ambition, to whatever extent is playing a role, doesn't change the facts, and the facts sit squarely with the Democrats on this. The moral high ground sits squarely with the Democrats here, at least the elected Democrats, because Donald Trump would not be ordering Texas to gerrymander further if he were confident that his party stands a chance, even a chance, of winning the 2026 midterms. He clearly feels that he's going to get his ass kicked in the upcoming election, and that's why he's calling these Republicans to do what they're doing.
All of those blue states have in common is that their population is fleeing for red states. And that could also happen in New York. And that could be basically pouring fuel on that fire, because you have the possibility of a Democratic socialist becoming the mayor and Senator Elizabeth Warren joining him. This is Mamdani I'm talking about. And I want to play this for you about the future of the party and get your take.
Senator,
that's how I see it.
Is this what the future of the party, you hope, progressive, social, is this what the party should look like?
Yes. You bet. The Democratic Party needs to stand up and be clear. We are the party that fights for affordability for working families.
Okay, so she said she's from Massachusetts. And one of your challenges is you've got to figure out a way to win in some of these purple or red states for Democrats. How difficult does she, Mamdani, AOC, and the progressive left make that for you?
Well, I don't think they make it difficult at all. At the end of the day, the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is that we're a big tent. We have lots of people in that tent from all of the different ideological wings, from conservative Democrats to centrists to progressives to these new leftists. And the reality is I've always said that you win through addition, not subtraction. You don't win by pushing people out of your coalition. You win by bringing people into your coalition. And that includes people from all different ideological wings. Unlike the Republicans who expect, everyone to march lockstep over one agenda, we actually welcome dissent and debate in our party. We actually welcome differences of opinion, and we'll continue to do that because that's what makes us strong as a Democratic Party.
So I just want to say before we wrap up here, my position on this is pretty clear. I'm a vote blue no matter who Democrat. If the choice is a Republican, an elected Republican in the age of Donald Trump, the Democrat is the better option on policy, on rhetoric, on aspiration. Even the most conservative Democrat, like I didn't like Joe Manchin, I didn't like Kyrsten Sinema, I don't like John Fetterman. I think that they are much too Trump friendly for my liking. Now, Manchin and Sinema, of course, have since retired. They're not seeking re-election. But if the choice is between them and a Republican, we vote blue. Likewise with progressive Democrats. I know Zoran Mamdani is not everybody's cup of tea, but he is the Democratic nominee. I think that he is a breath of fresh air in so many ways, especially in terms of messaging, especially in terms of bringing the fight to the Trump Republican Party and to corrupt mayors and incumbents and former governors like Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. I love that. And vote blue no matter who has to cut both ways. If we expect progressives to shut up and vote for moderate and centrist Democrats after the primary in the general, then that means that moderates have to shut up and vote for progressive Democrats after the primary. In my opinion, anything else is inconsistent and hypocritical and only serves to undermine the Democratic Party. So it's got to cut both ways. If you expect that of others, then you must honor that obligation yourself, as far as I'm concerned.
We're not going to shirk away from differences. We're going to actually talk about those differences. And at the end of the day, again, you win through addition, not subtraction, not by pushing people out of the conversation.
Well, and just given the basic polling that it is, the Democrats have just had their worst polling ever in terms of approval rating. And I know, let me just give you 15 seconds to try to say, big picture, how are you going to address that? Is it basically on the identity of who's in the party, or will you have some new messages and new policies to put forward?
Well, we have to do a better job there for sure. But remember, Dana, that the 26 elections and 25 elections will be a referendum on Donald Trump. And his numbers are actually in the toilet right now. He's sitting at 37% approval rating. He's one of the most unpopular politicians or presidents in recent memory. And so, listen, if I was a Republican Party right now, I would be worried too, which is why they're trying to cheat and steal these elections in Texas.
I know you and I could go on, but I have to get going and get back to Bill Hemmer. Thank you so much, Ken Martin.
And Dana would lose that every single time because, of course, Donald Trump is objectively the least popular president in American history. Ken Martin was actually lowballing here. He's not one of, he is the, and not in recent memory, in all of American history. He's objectively more unpopular at this point than Barack Obama, than Bill Clinton, than Joe Biden, than George W. Bush. So Trump is objectively unpopular, and he's right. Until 2028, this will be a total referendum on Trump. And quite frankly, even 2028 might be a referendum on Trump as well, because even though he's constitutionally ineligible for a third term, Presumably, it'll be a MAGA Republican like J.D. Vance, who's part of the Trump administration, running on Trump's record. So it is true that the Democratic Party has major issues. We are objectively unpopular at the moment. We have to work our asses off to do it. But Dana Perino wants to suggest that Donald Trump is sitting pretty when, in fact, he is not at all. So great performance by Ken Martin there. And in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.